Hi, everybody. I am so excited to come to you from the studios here at MAD to tell you about the great things that we have put together for the world. You know, when we started MAD, the mission was clean, affordable, abundant energy. How do we do that? How do we make it more affordable? How do we make it clean? How do we get it everywhere it needs to go? This was the issue that we started working on when we formed MAD in 2019. In those days, we laid out a roadmap of how to get to pollution-free, yet widely distributed, affordable energy for the whole entire world. You'll remember me talking about this when I first came to you and first started talking. We don't want to be destroying. We don't want to be digging up coal. We don't want to be stripping the earth. We want to work in harmony with the Creator, in harmony with Mother Nature, in harmony with the normal operation of the earth. Now, we've been working on it ever since, and we've raised and deployed a great deal of money thanks to you. And now I want to tell you what we've done. You know, getting there is a journey. We had to start with creating some projects that took out pollution sources, and we used regular old technology that we had used before. That's like Suriname. We're doing some gas-to-power projects in Africa. That's technology we've used for years. But at the same time, we've been assembling a suite of super cool tech that we finally now own entirely and are deploying. What is it? We finally got all of the intellectual property for the wireless technology that we've talked about you for so long. You go to our website, quantumwave.com, and you'll see all about it. We own it. We're deploying it, we're perfecting it, we're commercializing it. We've got PhDs, we've got engineers, we've got people working just so hard to bring this miraculous, transformational wireless electricity to the world. We're going to bypass hundreds of billions of dollars in infrastructure in continents like Africa that don't have what it takes to get electricity to somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 billion people right now. Imagine 1 billion people, no electricity at all. Working together, you and us, the MAD community, we're going to change all that. Tune in and we're going to tell you about it. You know, I thought it'd be a good idea if we brought the MAD community up to date on what we've been doing in Africa.
That's a good place to start.
I think so.
Very exciting.
One of my favorite continents now. I've been there about 5 times recently in the past 6 months. And we're working with the governments of Zimbabwe and the governments of Botswana to stand up power for those nations. And this is not just any power, it's gas to power. So it's one of the cleanest forms of base power that we can possibly produce for them. And why this is interesting is that they're using primarily coal in both of those countries. And coal, as you know, burns much dirtier and far more polluting than natural gas. So the ability to bring them the cleanest form of fossil fuel base power is quite exciting. And the demand is huge. I've told you some stories about these trips.
It's hard to believe when we live in America and talk about people that don't have electricity from 4 in the morning till 11 at night.
That is Zimbabwe today.
It's
when
amazing.
You look at the news, they always say blackout, and then they'll have a number. The number is the hours of blackout. It's usually 8, often 12. That's South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana. So it's a major impediment to economic development and quality of life.
Why don't we back this up just a teensy bit? Because you gave a speech at a UN dinner in New York City. The president of Zimbabwe heard you speak. What happened after that?
Well, he came up and he said, listen, I agree with what you had to say about energy and the requirements for energy. And so I would like you to come to my country and help me provide cleaner energy, more reliable energy, better energy to the people of Zimbabwe. And he said, you know, Zimbabwe, we've had some tough times. And they have. For those that don't know the history of Zimbabwe, it was Rhodesia. And when it became independent from British Empire in 1980, it had a lot of trouble and a lot of deaths, a lot of fighting. It was really quite terrible. It was then followed by hyperinflation, which was terrible. I mean, I have in the office here a $100 trillion bill. from Zimbabwe. So you can see that the hyperinflation that they suffered was pretty remarkable. So the president coming and saying, look, our nation wants to get back on its feet, and our nation needs the building block of what allows us to develop, and that's clean, abundant, affordable energy.
The beautiful part, and because you can't say this about the leaders of all the countries on that continent, but really what spoke to him was how you talked about the curse of oil and how, if we were going to be coming into a country like that, that would not happen, and we would see to it.
That's true. And being in Africa, he was very familiar with Nigeria. And when we talk about the curse of oil, we talk about how oftentimes developing nations, while they're rich in natural resources, the development of those resources creates a lot of money, a lot of hot money flowing through the country. And unfortunately, it seems to go to the very top. And you get people in Rolls Royces, you get, Rolexes on their arms, they have multi-million-dollar homes, but yet the vast majority of the people can't eat. And when I was younger and I would do work in these nations, it would just break my heart. And so the curse of oil, that stratification of society where the very upper elite gets all the money and everybody else, to heck with them, they'll get whatever they get. That is something that Mad Energy never wants to see resulting from its projects. And that was something that I talked about at that speech. And President Mnangagwa, he saw that. And he came to me and he said, we want this type of development. They've been dealing with Chinese. They've been dealing with Russians. They would prefer to deal with us. So we're seeing that firsthand. And now we have projects that are going to start to come to fruition in Africa, where we'll be standing up a 350, 380, depending upon the altitude of where it is at the end of the day and how efficient our equipment is. But it should be just under 400 megawatts of clean base power to provide to the nation. And that'll make a big difference because they just have a massive hole right now. That whole region needs energy drastically, and we're here to help.
It's holding their economy back.
It's holding
virtually everything back, but it's
holding the mothers back from cooking meals for their kids because they don't have refrigeration in their homes, right? It's they're cooking with wood because they can't cook meals on electric ranges. It's amazing. They have people at the intersections because there's no electricity for the traffic lights. So you come in and there's a guy just standing there directing traffic. And it's just a guy. He doesn't have anything else to do. It's like Steve Youngdahl. Whenever there's a traffic incident in Sandpoint, Steve gets out. And he handles it personally.
My kids will testify to this.
I know, I've seen you do it, and you're very good at it.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a lot of Steve Youngdahls in Zimbabwe, and they're out there where the traffic lights are malfunctioning, and they just go out there and do the job just like you do, Oliver Sandpoint. So it's actually a remarkable nation.
Besides a shortage of power, they have an electrical grid, the South African power producing grid, that is, I don't want to be unfair, but it's in terrible shape.
Yeah, it's not maintained well. They just don't have the capacity to maintain it well. And it's something called the Southern African Power Pool, which is a 7-nation combined grid that feeds all the nations in the southern part of Africa. And they share power through this common grid. But, grids, it's not enough to just build them. It's very expensive to build a mechanical grid. But the maintenance of the grid is something else entirely. And that is a constant upkeep. And it's hundreds of millions of dollars to upkeep the grid. And unfortunately, they don't have the resources to do that. And so when you don't, what happens is you're producing electricity, but as you transmit it through the wires, you lose a great deal of it. There's one reported to me that there was a 100-kilometer stretch of high-tension wire, the big wires that go long distances. If you put 100 megawatts in at the start, you got 50 megawatts when you came out the other side. You're losing half of the power that you're generating. So this is a massive problem. And we're hoping to help them overcome this issue with our quantum wave technology. You want to fill them in on that development?
Well, one of the most exciting things of this trip is just before George had left on his first trip down there, we had closed on the purchase of the intellectual property for quantum, what we call quantum wave, which is the Tesla technology to transmit electricity through the air. And we were very, very excited about it. And when George showed up, he started talking about this. And virtually everyone that he talked to was doing backflips. This would make such a gigantic impact in the country, all of those countries. It would be like they just added, gigawatts of power just through the efficiencies. That's how critical this is. Plus, the growth. They flat out don't have the money to go out and rebuild that grid. Way, way, way too expensive. We can go in there with quantum wave and replace it for pennies on the dollar, and then all of a sudden, just by installing quantum wave, they have more electricity, just because we're not experiencing the same loss. I would dare to say it was one of the more exciting parts of your trip.
Yeah, everyone I showed it to was just so excited about it. We were able to show it to the finance minister of Zimbabwe, and he was super. He's a wonderful man, and I've known him now for some time. And he was like, bring it here as fast as you can. And the idea that we can transmit wirelessly electricity safely from the generation point out in the middle of nowhere. Africa is a massive continent. The hundreds of millions of dollars that we would have to spend to run all new wires to transmit electricity effectively. When you replace that with our launch towers, transmission towers, and then we put our receivers at every existing substation, we can just bypass the large trunk lines, the long haul lines. And this bypasses hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure. But not only that, there's no maintenance. There's maintenance to the towers, but just imagine you're not maintaining a whole string of towers every 100 yards or so. And all the wires that go through there. None of that ongoing maintenance is required. So the other thing that's very interesting is that, as big windstorms come up, high wires will get knocked down and then you've got to go replace them. Our technology is totally free from any of those types of catastrophes. It operates totally independent of any natural disasters, hurricanes, weather, all those types of things. It's even EMP proof, electromagnetic pulse proof. So it's really a very exciting, very effective, and very efficient, because over the course of long transmissions, our technology only loses 12% of the energy put in. So by the time it's received, it's only a 12% loss. That's much, much better over long distances than wires, so where the loss is far greater. So everyone that I showed it to is very excited. The folks in South Africa, I had big meetings in Johannesburg, by the way.
Yes.
They were exciting. There's a lot of people there that want to have our help. And some of those things I can't talk about yet because they haven't been made public. But there's a lot going on, and there's a great deal of excitement, not only about us generating clean, affordable base power to that region of the world, but more excitement about us transmitting it wirelessly and leapfrogging over this major infrastructure deficit that the area suffers. Yeah. So that was exciting stuff.
And they have, I'm pretty sure it's hundreds of millions of underserved people, but they also have a very, very large number of people. They just don't have electricity.
Right.
And this is going to make it so much easier to reach those places, to provide water, sanitation, irrigation for farming. We can go anywhere you can drop a receiver down, we can go very cost effectively. And all of a sudden people that have they've never had it and they suffer for it. They live in areas where, if you need to pump the water up out of the ground, a hand pump's only going to take you so far, and that's not going to irrigate a field. So if we can provide refrigeration for their food and sanitation and water, it's going to change their world.
Yeah, the lifespan, the health results of this. Also, people underestimate the negativity of cooking with wood inside of your home because you're breathing, you're inhaling. It's like, 5 packs a day, right? You have women dying because they're inhaling smoke because they're cooking for their family. Sickness from spoilage of food, the long-term illnesses created by inhaling all that smoke, sanitation, right? Waste treatment, fresh, clean water, refrigeration. All of these things, for the very first time, will literally be coming to darn near 1 billion people on the continent of Africa who have never, ever even seen electricity at all. We're so excited about the changes we can make there, and the governments are seeing it. The folks that we're dealing with there, they're excited too, and they're helpful. It's really good to see. They're excited about the new tech. They're excited that we're there to help them move their nations forward, and the reception has been remarkable. So I think that's really the Africa report. The need, so many times, like we were involved in a project in Canada, right? Would have done tremendous benefit for Europe, would have done tremendous benefit for the people of Canada, would have created, it was the largest jobs program in Quebec. It had all kinds of upsides, right? But because of government regulatory structure and rigmarole and red tape, we actually were never able to get that project done. So it was blocked solely by governmental interference. So having a nation that really wants energy, really needs energy, wants to get behind creating economic development for their people, a higher quality of life for their people, modernization for their people. This is exciting. It's, we're not, sometimes throughout my career, we're busting through getting all the permits and approvals that we've needed to get for energy projects where I've been the attorney doing all of that. Gosh, it just seems like this endless fight to bring energy to the world. I mean, you would think that people would want clean, abundant, affordable energy. And it's heartening to know that, at least in the southern part of Africa, they really do.
I would say a very, very successful trip.
It was a great trip.
Good job.
Thank you. Why don't we do Suriname real quick?
It's just a fantastic project. It's down off the northeast shoulder of South America, little country named Suriname, and they have one of the largest oil and gas finds in the world. So immediately, all of the big oil companies go down and start punching holes, but they don't have the infrastructure to handle the associated gases. So they flare it. Well, when you flare untreated gas like that, it's going to turn in, we're old enough to remember, acid rain. So you're going to add acid rain and it's going to blow right over onto the Amazon. This is not a very good situation. So that got our attention, but then we found out there was a lot of other benefits that went along with it. There's some really good benefits in Europe.
Yeah. It was soon after we got involved in that project was when Russia invaded Ukraine. And all of a sudden, they cut off the supply of gas to Europe. And that's a major thing because then throughout Germany, they started burning coal, which of course is one of the dirtiest forms of fuel that you can burn. And so having clean burning natural gas in Europe became a big deal. So we were able to sell the entire first phase of our project, 3 million metric tons per annum, which is a lot of natural gas, to Europe in lickety-split time. Now, we've also gotten the site where we're gonna have the project built. We've got all the permits from the government, all the permissions to build it. Now we've sold all the gas that we're gonna liquefy, right? And if you don't know how liquid natural gas works, you take natural gas, you take it down to negative 170 degrees centigrade, which is a huge lift to get it that cold. It goes from being a gas into being a liquid, and it reduces volume 600 times. So you can get 600 times the gas in a liquid form into a tanker to send it over to Europe as you could as if it were gas. So that's why we do it. The only real reason we make liquid natural gas is to transport it more effectively. We've stood up this project in Suriname, and now we're at the point where there's 3 things that you need for a project like this. You need what we call the downstream, and that's the sale of what you're producing. We've already got that. You need the midstream, and that's when you're processing the molecule and how you treat the molecule to be sold. We've got that. We're working right now with the major oil companies offshore and the nation of Suriname to secure what we call the upstream, and that's the supply of the natural gas that we'll turn into liquids and then sell. So that we're in the final phase, and we're almost there. We're behind schedule some, but the progress is very consistent, and I'm quite certain that by the end of this year, we will have overcome this final sort of challenge, which is to get the upstream secured and the long-term gas supply agreements in line. So we have a program set forth to accomplish that. We're working on it on a daily basis. And so we're excited about Suriname, all the good that it does for the nation of Suriname, the people of Suriname, the people of Europe, and for the Amazon rainforest by preventing acid rain. So it's got a lot of benefits.
And it's also going to take and uplift the living of all the Surinamese. The local population down there will have high-paying jobs. It's going to help their economy. And again, referring back to the curse of oil, because we're involved, we're going to make sure that the people of that country get the benefit at the same time. And I believe we have the commitment from all the way up to the president's office in that regard.
Oh, we do, yeah.
Yeah.
And the cabinet. Everybody is pretty much behind this project in the nation because this will transform the entire nation, uplift the people. It's really a tremendous project. And we will also be maintaining the carbon zero or the carbon negative footprint of the country, which is important to the president and important to the people of the nation. So that is something that we're doing and working hard to respect that. I wanted to give everybody a little update on ADACEN. ADACEN stands for Advanced Data Centers, and it's one of the companies in the MAD ecosystem. The reason that we got involved with ADACEN is because it has really the coolest computer tech that I've seen in a long, long time. What they do that's different is that they submerge the blades, the CPUs, into a liquid that does not transmit electricity. It's called a dielectric fluid. And this allows them to take the heat out of the blades, liquid to metal. It's much more efficient than trying to cool it with air, which is what all the data centers in the world right now do. This reduces the amount of electricity that is required to operate the data center by 40%. It also reduces the size of the data center down by 90%. It only uses 10% of the space of a normal data center. But what's really cool is it uses no water. Right now, when you run a big legacy data center that's air cooled, you're actually creating the air conditioning by evaporation of water. And you run through millions of gallons of water to make that happen. ADACEN doesn't use any water at all. So this is so good for the environment. So we got involved with it for that reason, but we also got involved with it because they have some very advanced ways of approaching the use of these submerged computing systems that they create. I saw right away that this would have two major applications to what we're doing. One of our missions is to transmit electricity more efficiently than it is today, more safely, more efficiently. We have a mechanical grid. It's wires, it's switches, it's things called SCADA units that are at substations. SCADA units are very, very old-fashioned technology. Very old-fashioned, 1960s. They're prone to inefficiency. They're prone to hacking. They're one of the major ways that our grid could be taken down right now. But if we can take our ADACEN mini pods and put them in the substation in place of the SCADA units, we have quantum encryption. They're basically impossible to hack. They have artificial intelligence. They're monitoring thousands of factors of the grid. They're taking electricity and they're putting it where it needs to be very efficiently. They're using every electron that we produce more efficiently and more effectively than it is being used right now. We waste a lot of electricity within the grid. So why would we create it and then just throw it away like that? It doesn't make sense. We can avoid that with this combination of the ADACEN technology and some software that takes a touch of AI, analyzes multitudes of factors on the grid, and then enhances the efficiency of the grid. It also allows us to predict where the grid will fail. It also allows us to know more quickly where the grid has failed. It eliminates false alarms, so it reduces the number of road trips that crews have to take out to look at what's going on. We know what's happening because we've got all those factors being read into our computer at the edge, right there at the substation. Super exciting, really a wonderful program. We're rolling it out right now with ADACEN in Power, New Mexico. It's exciting. We're working with some other major energy companies throughout the world, throughout the United States, to roll it out in substations across the southern United States. So this more effective, more secure approach to transmitting electricity is very, very exciting. It's right in the wheelhouse of MAD energy. So that's one of the reasons we're involved and so excited about ADACEN. Another reason is that we know that for our next coming grid, right, we're replacing the mechanical grid that I just described with what we call the electromagnetic grid. That's quantum wave. So our quantum wave technology, we're able to transmit electricity safely wirelessly. But you have to be able to make that all happen. You have to be able to create the waves safely from the towers that we erect and launch the wave at the right frequency. You have to control the wave. You have to be able to put the right data and things on the wave as it moves. So all of this is happening. It takes a tremendous amount of computer power. The great thing about the ADACEN pods and the ADACEN approach to computing is that because of the effective cooling of the CPUs, you can get a great deal more work out of them. This, together with some advanced software that we have, allows us to create essentially a little supercomputer. If you guys have ever heard of Cray supercomputers, there's very few of them and they're extraordinarily expensive. We can mimic a Cray supercomputer right at one of our transmission towers, right at our receivers that are at substations, and we can control everything that's happening through this advanced computer technology. This allows us to be much more effective with the transmission of electricity through the quantum wave. So I think ADACEN is a super home run. The head of ADACEN is John Davis, General Don Davis, just a superstar in my opinion. He's done an incredible job. The team at ADACEN has done such a fantastic job. We're just proud to be part of that company and to support that company where we can. We're excited to work with him in everything that we're doing.